Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Citrix Session podcast. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got with me, as always, Bill Sutton, the Director of Services at XenTegra. How's it going, Bill?
Going very well today, Andy. How about yourself?
It's going good. This is our second one this week, right?
That's right, number 2.
Yeah, I mean, if we could, we'd actually like to do this every day, right? Because you and I, we hinted last week or kind of let the cat out of the bag that we don't do this because we really want to do a podcast. We do it because we want to get people on and talk to them about what they're doing and learn ourselves. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the big benefits of this.
So with that, I'll introduce our guest. We have Derek Thorslund. He's a senior product manager I'm going to let Derek explain the rest of that title, specifically what he's responsible for. But Derek's somebody Bill and I have been following for a bunch of years, and Derek's job is probably one of the most important things, and we've alluded to it several times in these podcasts. It's all about the user experience, and Derek is always touching the latest, greatest thing at Citrix that is their investment in the R&D around the user experience. So Derek, welcome.
Well, thanks. Hi, Andy. Hi, Bill. I'm very much concerned about user experience, delivering the best experience, and I think there's two parts that come together here. My background at Citrix, I've been with Citrix for many years, is on HDX, the high definition experience technologies, and the ICA protocol. And that's the first half of it. The second half of a great user experience is having a good network connection. And so I moved over to the networking team about a year and a half ago. So I think the two things really fit together well. And so now I'm a senior director of product management for Citrix SD-WAN.
So Derek, are you saying you can't have a good ICA presentation layer, presentation protocol experience without a functioning, good, decent network?
Yeah. Have you ever seen what happens if you pull out the network cable?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
So your screen goes gray, and you can still read what's on the screen, but not going to be able to do much without a network connection. And of course, the ICA protocol, the HDX technology, they're going to squeeze the very best experience they can out of whatever network connection you got. But if you give it a better network connection, you're going to get a better user experience, and that's what Citrix SD-WAN does.
So that goes along the lines of this podcast, right? So I always tell people exactly what you just said, right? Citrix can only do so much with the magic. They can only do so much of squeezing that turnip. You got to have something there for them to use. But Citrix's bread and butter for all these years has been taking that network and making the most out of it so that the user experience could be the best it could be. And so your blog is the best way to connect to Citrix Managed Desktops, CMD, as what it's called, or referred to, the acronym by a lot of people. But Citrix Managed Desktops, which is I'll try to explain this and you can clear up what I get wrong, but that's the Citrix edition or the derivative of Microsoft WVD, which is Microsoft hosted desktops in Azure, and the Citrix Managed Desktop gets all the benefits of Microsoft WVD. I like to explain to people WVD kind of gets used like Kleenex. It's one particular thing, but it gets used for all tissues. But WVD is Microsoft's implementation of it. Citrix CMD is a specific Citrix tenant in Azure where Citrix manages the entire desktop experience for you, at least the core of it, and gives you a WVD-like on steroids experience plus what we're going to talk about here. So you're the best way to connect to Citrix Managed Desktops. You're going to clean up what I just said about Citrix Managed Desktops a little bit maybe, and then talk about the pieces in this blog that you're adding to that to make it even a better user experience, right?
Hey, that was good, Andy. And maybe one day you'll be able to invite Karidi Valacherla or Carissa Stringer to your podcast to talk a little bit more about CMD. But you got it right. It's our desktop as a service offering built on top of Windows Virtual Desktops. With all the added Citrix goodness on top of that. So delivering virtual desktops from Azure, and really meeting the demand we see in the market for a low-cost basic desktop that's delivered as a service to organizations like I'm sure many of your customers who just want to press the easy button and keep things real simple.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's simple and then user experience, and I think that's what you're going to cover here by adding SD-WAN and quality of service into that all-important key networking piece.
Exactly. our elevator pitch is that Citrix SD-WAN is the easiest and best way to deliver Citrix Managed Desktops and all the associated apps. So because obviously within your virtual desktop, you've got your Windows apps, you got your browser where you're accessing SaaS and cloud apps, all of that. And I'll get into some more detail in this podcast, I'm sure, around how it interoperates with the HDX technologies to deliver that user experience. So yeah, best user experience, built for cloud, integrated and simple workflow, which is where a lot of the R&D effort went into, bringing SD-WAN and CMD together and providing readily available, low-cost connectivity. That's what these customers are looking for.
So I'll add one other piece in here, and then I'll ask for Bill to chime in. But SD-WAN and its predecessor, WAN optimization, so SD-WAN, in my opinion, or my thought, is WAN optimization plus link aggregation or bandwidth aggregation, and in the world of the Citrix SD-WAN with secret sauce that understands Citrix protocols and Citrix types of connections. That made a lot of sense to me when people have their own data centers and they're connecting in like a hub and spoke branch type world. But the first time I saw that conversation happen with somebody who was talking real cloud, public IaaS type of scenarios, all of a sudden the idea that we could virtualize appliances that would be involved in that scenario made SD-WAN go from being a nice to have to almost a need to have conversation.
Yeah, that's certainly what all the analysts are saying, and that's what we would say to our customers too, because there's been a big shift. There's this huge adoption of SaaS and cloud workloads, and so the old legacy network architecture that, as you described it, basically all your branch offices connecting through a data center. Well, that just doesn't really make sense anymore, because you need your branch offices to have direct access to the cloud in a secure and reliable manner. You want to minimize latency, because that's the bane of user experience, so you want to get to the closest pop, and you want to do it with a high degree of reliability and performance, which is where, QoS and packet level processing come into play.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, any additional thoughts on this space you'd want to share before we get into the blog Derek wrote?
Yeah, I was just going to say that in reviewing the blog, which I'm sure Derek will go into a lot more detail, I mean, the concept of leveraging SD-WAN to eliminate the internet backhaul and provide direct access is one big piece of it, of course. But another thing which probably throws back to Derek's earlier time in the HDX area, right? HDX arena, is this whole concept of adaptive transport and being able to leverage UDP for some of that traffic, which I would suspect, Derek, you correct me if I'm wrong here, that plays a lot into the optimizations that SD-WAN can offer.
That absolutely does. We're very proud of EDT. That's our UDP-based data transport protocol. Basically gives you, better performance than you would get with TCP whenever the user's not in the same physical location as their virtual desktop, which is obviously the case here. Right. The desktop's up in the cloud. So yeah, EDT is really critical to that great experience. And on top of that, and Andy alluded to it, the link bonding capability that we have means that you don't need to use expensive, MPLS express route type connections from your branch offices to get to Azure. With link bonding, we can get that high reliability plus a lot more bandwidth just using broadband business internet connections. A lot less expensive.
Yeah, I got to tell you guys a real quick story, and then we'll jump into this. I got on a plane, early flight. I got on an earlier flight a month or two ago, and I was sitting in the very back of the plane, and it was dark. It was a red eye, and I'm looking down through the aisle, and you could see at least 5 or 6 people down through the aisle that had the Citrix Desktop Viewer toolbar on their screen. And seeing that many people use Citrix from an airplane at 30,000 feet at the same time was an aha moment for me as to how far this stuff's come.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's jump into it. I think we've covered the introduction here. Derek, your first section here after the introduction, a two-pronged approach to performance optimization. And I actually see you have EDT listed here. Do you want to jump into what you're saying here?
Yeah, really, again, want to emphasize that there's two key things that need to come together here, and that's what we've done. The first is, of course, the HDX stack, which includes ICA, the protocol, and some surrounding technologies around multimedia virtualization. Well, I had a lot of fun when I was in charge of all the HDX technologies, as you know, right? I worked on things like HDX 3D Pro for 3D graphics, CAD, CAM, and so on. And worked on the optimization packs for Skype for Business, which now we've got it for Teams, and all that great stuff. That's the first part of my two-pronged approach, as I call it. But the second part is the network connection, and we talked about backhauling to the data center and how that adds latency, which degrades the user experience. And also, by the way, if a customer is moving from having used just local desktops before and now they're moving to virtual desktops, that could also add traffic to their network, which could be a problem because they might need to spend money on upgrading those MPLS links. That's not cheap. Otherwise, they could face congestion. But even if they go with an architecture of going straight to the cloud, how would they do that? If you just used a direct internet connectivity with a business broadband internet link, I would say, be careful, because depending on what country you're in, that's going to vary. But here in the U.S., and we have a lot of data from telemetry from customers across the U.S., here in the U.S., on average, an internet link is unusable for, would you believe, 23 hours a month. And that's the average. So, the way I think about that is, a couple of months might go by and everything's fine. And then, whoa, then I get hit. So you got to ask yourself, if you're thinking about your business, what's the impact on users if the internet's down and they can't get any work done? Are they just going to revert to pen and paper? So it could have a significant impact on the business.
Yeah, that's great. So you're saying that we can do it better and cheaper all at the same time, which is, well, I have to tell my SD-WAN story, how I try to describe it to people. I have to go from my house to my kids' school almost every day to pick them up. And I still every day, well, almost every time I go, I put the school's address in Google Maps or Waze or something, because I know how to get there, but I don't know the traffic, I don't know the road construction, I don't know the current situation. And so even though I have something tried and true that typically works for me, but every once in a while, you're saying that every 23 minutes a month or whatever it is, it doesn't work.
23 hours.
Hours a month, it doesn't work. Yeah. I let software help me be smarter than I can be all by myself, and that's to me that's
it. That sounds like software-defined networking in the car, and that's what we're doing here. So with our SD-WAN, you'd have two internet broadband connections, from two different providers from your branch.
At least two, right?
At least two, and you can also have like LTE, a cellular connection. Our devices support that, which you can just keep pinging to make sure it's alive. But when you need it, it's there. So you end up with this very high reliability because we're able to instantly move traffic from one link to the other. It's kind of like you deciding to turn right instead of turn left, based on what the Google Maps or Waze is telling you. So we're monitoring the links with every packet that we send. Every packet is a probe, and so within a matter of less than 10 milliseconds usually, but certainly less than 20 milliseconds, which is so fast the user wouldn't even notice. In that short interval of time, we can shift packets from one link to the other, and for certain really critical traffic. So think about VoIP. That's a good example where it's pretty awful when the packets are falling on the floor and you get these gaps in the conversation, and I think we've all been there. With VoIP, we could send the same VoIP packet over both connections simultaneously. We call that packet racing, and we just grab whichever one gets to the other end first. So the result is lower latency, lower jitter, lower packet loss, basically a much better VoIP experience with apps like Microsoft Teams, for example.
Interestingly enough, though, I think, Derek, am I right in also saying that we can do that for some of the Citrix protocols as well, the packet racing?
Yeah, absolutely. So think about, probably the most critical thing would be my user input, my
Yes.
keyboard and mouse, or if I'm using a touch device, right? And that's a great example where we would use packet racing, send that same packet over both links up to the cloud.
Yeah, so if somebody goes to print a massive PDF or something, we can still get those mouse movements and keystrokes and screen redraws and all of that handled in a much more efficient way and not be bottlenecked by that big print job, right?
In fact, it's a really, really critical thing, and packet racing is only just one piece of that.
Mm-hmm.
What's really important here, is quality of service, basically making sure that critical traffic gets prioritized. So this is where there's really some great secret sauce here that Citrix adds with the integration between SD-WAN and the Citrix Managed Desktops. Because what we're able to do is split that traffic over our ICA protocol into 4 streams of traffic, a real-time interactive bulk background. And by splitting it into those 4 streams, we can give them different prioritization. So, exactly the scenario you mentioned, you wouldn't want somebody who's printing off a big print job full of graphics and all that, to degrade the experience of the person who's interacting with the screen and needs a responsive user experience. So we have that, and we can make sure interactive traffic gets prioritized ahead of that bulk and background traffic.
Right.
It's highly likely that on this recording of this podcast, we'll run into a situation where one of the 3 of us will get garbled. And I can tell you that where I'm coming from, we use Citrix virtual desktops every day, and we have challenges from time to time where there's a little bit of latency, there's a little lag, and we know it's not the back end, we know it's something in between here and there. And we as a company plan to implement SD-WAN to solve that challenge.
Yeah, SD-WAN is really great for virtualized apps and desktops and for unified communications applications like voice. It's perfect for that.
I had a customer, probably 12 years ago now, that to this day does not like Citrix. Their management does not like Citrix. And what happened was they went to roll it out, and it failed. And then they went to roll out their new intranet, and they decided, well, we better fix our network before we roll out this intranet. Well, guess what happened to Citrix when they fixed their network?
Oh yeah,
got a whole lot better, right?
That crappy Citrix product turned into a really good product overnight. I don't know how that happened.
And one thing a lot of people may not realize, when you think about a virtual desktop, think about DAS, CMD, right? Is they might not realize that there's more to it than just that one connection between the user and their virtual desktop. That's the ICA connection, as we call it. That's the protocol there. That's a key part of it, but it's not the only connection you need. If I'm running a virtual desktop, I may need 3 or 4 other connections. I'll explain. It could be that I'm running a Windows client server app in my virtual desktop. Well, where's the back end? Where's the server side of that client server app running? It could be running on-prem in a data center, if I still have one. I could be also using a file server or a database server that's on-prem. Or maybe I have my Active Directory on-prem, right? So there's also the connection from the virtual desktop back to an on-prem data center, if I still have one. Then, on top of that, there's the connection to the cloud. I'm running my browser in my virtual desktop to get to SaaS apps, to get to Office 365 or Google Suite or whatever, or to other clouds. And on that connection, using Citrix SD-WAN gives us security because we have our firewall, ICSA certified firewall, and it gives me visibility into that traffic that I wouldn't otherwise have. And then where it gets really special, I think, is when you get into video and unified communication. Because we were talking about features like packet racing. Well, the way HDX works is HDX will try to redirect video to the user device, which is in the branch office, whenever it can. And it has a lot of advantages. Obviously, you use up less compute cycles on Azure because you're not putting this heavy video processing load up in the cloud, that would be expensive. So it's taking advantage of the fact that most of us have devices which are very capable of processing video. They have H.264 codec technology and so on. And HDX will redirect that traffic to the user device. Well, then SD-WAN is able to recognize this traffic and do local breakouts. So there's another connection, from that SD-WAN appliance in the branch up to sites like YouTube or Vimeo. And then when you get into something like Microsoft Teams or other WebRTC-based apps, the same principle is used. The audio-video processing actually happens on the user device, not on the virtual desktop up in the cloud in Azure, but on that user device. And then we can use our advanced technology to connect through our virtual appliance to the UC as a service property up in the cloud. So you get a much, much better user experience that way.
Yeah, Derek, it sounds like there's multiple pieces, right? There's the ICA protocol, which is part of that HDX suite of things. And then there's the things we can do around that to make other peripheral things better, to make ICA have a better life to live.
Yeah, that's right. So, you can see all these user experience benefits, but, the other big aspect of CMD is keeping it simple. So that's where a lot of the effort has gone in to reach the point where we are, where we now have this tech preview available, where we've integrated SD-WAN into the Citrix Managed Desktops admin workflow. Yeah. So, we really, really simplified things. And, for customers who want to press the easy button, they can turn to a partner like yourself, like XenTegra, to help them to get that SD-WAN network put into place.
Yeah. So, Derek, this whole conversation applies whether we're talking Citrix Sessions, or not, at least a bunch of it does. It applies whether we're talking Citrix Managed Desktop, CMD, or not. I've convinced myself, and I want to make sure that I'm right, that when it comes to breaking out that stuff that needs to be broken out to be optimal from the ICA protocol, from using HDX, Citrix, that's where the secret sauce kicks in. That's where they can do it and others can't do it at all or can't do it as well. Yeah,
absolutely. It's not a protocol we license to any other SD-WAN vendors. HDX is ours, and not only do we have these great advantages already around auto QoS, as we call it, to preserve that quality of experience. We also work closely with the HDX team as they continue to evolve that technology stack and protocol. I can tell you, I'm working with them on what's in the roadmap for next year. And, those are things that no other SD-WAN vendor would ever be able to keep up with. So it continues to evolve. It just doesn't sit still.
You'd really have to care about the Citrix world to even put the effort in to develop that. Hey, Derek, you mentioned something earlier I want to highlight for people. Have you ever walked outside and seen one cloud, just one cloud in the sky, that was it?
Nope.
And that goes right to the story, right? Where the beauty of SD-WAN is the ability to make all those clouds closer together and faster and reliable. And that's, this world we live in, whether it's app as a service or infrastructure as a service or some type of PaaS, all those things are clouds and multiple clouds within all those different conversations, and things like SD-WAN making it quicker to talk to each other and more reliable. That's what I meant earlier when I said SD-WAN becomes a no-brainer in a cloud world.
Yeah, it does. And, so we support our SD-WAN virtual appliances on Azure, on AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and now we're in tech preview with Oracle as well. There's plenty of cloud choice there. And then, of course, the ability to identify over 4,500 different types of apps, SaaS apps, so that we can, again, give them, not only provide visibility, but steer them appropriately and allow for policies to be set, distinguish your business apps from, social media or whatever other apps you have in the branch office.
But when you're talking, Derek, when you're talking about steering apps, just to be clear, you're really talking about getting the user connection to that SaaS app or what have you as close to where they are as possible. So correct. So if you have a you have the data centers in the east and the branches in the west, that user doesn't have to backhaul to the east to get to their SaaS app when a front door to that SaaS app might be in the west, right?
Yeah, it's largely about minimizing latency. That is
Right.
really one of the key things. So, we have some proximate DNS, as we call it, technology there to do intelligent routing of DNS requests, the location-aware DNS. And that applies too, in a CMD environment where, we have our SD-WAN virtual appliance there on Azure, and it's providing access to Office 365 and other SaaS properties.
Right.
Because it's also important to make sure people realize that in this world of cloud, that data center that they've been accessing for all these years is more or less just another cloud in this grand scheme of clouds, right? It's their private cloud, but it's their cloud, and it has been for a long time. This helps tie that into everything else.
Sure. So really, that's true. It gives customers so much flexibility as to where they put their workloads. Nobody has to jump, in one giant leap from on-prem to cloud exclusively, right? It's a hybrid multi-cloud world.
Yeah, I guess I should probably let the cat out of the bag and tell everybody the Microsoft Cloud is just somebody else's data center with their servers. It's a lot like yours.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I would also add to that, you talked about all the different clouds you can run the SD-WAN on. That also includes, different hypervisors for your private clouds or physical equipment that can run in your data center to make it an extension of those other public clouds, right?
Yeah, that's true too. So we run on various hypervisors, and for your on-prem sites, whether it's your data center or your branch offices, we have a range of choices. You could have physical appliances. We have them in different sizes and capacities, or you can run a virtual appliance on a hypervisor. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there. And to make it really simple, again, when you plug in one of these branch appliances, it basically calls home. So we've made it so that with what we call zero-touch deployment, you don't need a technician to go on site. You have a small branch office. As long as somebody can find the network cable and a power cord, they just plug this thing in. It's that easy. It's zero touch. And once you plug it in, it calls the Citrix Cloud. It authenticates, does discovery and registration, confirms that it's the right owner of the device, and it automatically configures the device remotely from the cloud. So it's very, very simple.
That sounds like an awesome PaaS, right? Platform as a service. There's all kinds of clouds.
Yeah.
Hey, I would be remiss and a really bad XenTegra person if I didn't point out that XenTegra is one of the few Citrix partners in the country that can actually do this as a managed service for customers as well as other partners. So I just realized that we're having this whole conversation around something that we're very unique at and can help other partners as well as customers totally offload this onto someone else to be responsible for not only the SD-WAN piece, but the bandwidth and things that have to go along with it. They get aggregated.
That's what I love about you guys. I think you really make it easy for your customers to press the easy button, so to speak, right? That's
right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And, besides simplicity, I think the other important thing to mention is how we've made it easy to fit this into our customers' budget. I mean, we already talked about a lot of the cost savings they can get using SD-WAN, but beyond that, what we've also done is that when a customer purchases SD-WAN subscriptions for their branch office appliances, we're providing the SD-WAN instance on Azure with no additional licensing fee. So that's really great. It's going to make it really easy for customers to fit this into their budget.
Yeah, for sure. Hey,
So
Bill,
go ahead. Do you just spin it up? Is it part of, you said something about being part of the workflow. Is it simply a matter of checking a box, or is it more than that in terms of getting it instantiated for the customer as part of their managed desktop deployment?
Yeah, the instantiation of what we call the VPX, the SD-WAN virtual
Mm-hmm.
appliance, that happens in an automated way. We have APIs from our SD-WAN orchestrator, which is what you would be using if you're a managed service provider. XenTegra as a service provider would use the orchestrator to create the SD-WAN network, and it'll automatically instantiate the SD-WAN virtual appliance in Azure. And so the desktop admin who's using this CMD workflow, actually all they really have to do is enter a couple of IP addresses. It's like one page on the screen. It's very, very simple.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Great.
Well, guys, I think we've covered what's in the blog and a lot more. Derek, are there any other items while you've got the audience around HDX or HDX and networking at Citrix that you want to make sure you get out in front of people now?
Well, I just want to make sure people stay tuned because there's more to come, and I think you kind of hinted at it. I know we focused today on Citrix Managed Desktops, our DAS offering, but I tell you, like a lot of the same goodness we've been talking about applies to customers who are taking advantage of the Citrix Virtual Apps and Desktop service. And I haven't blogged about that yet, so maybe we'll have some time to talk again.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Hey, Bill, anything else you want to cover?
No, I think this is really good stuff. I think SD-WAN. I've had some experience with it in the past when it was really starting to come along, and there was a lot of confusion, I think, in the marketplace about exactly what it did and how it worked, and certainly, my view on this is that Citrix has really brought it full circle and now starting to leverage it for the goodness of HDX and redirection and optimizing access to things like Teams. And I'm just really glad to see it come full circle. And hopefully what we'll see going forward is a lot more adoption of this because I think it can really benefit our collective customers.
So Bill, if you go back to the first time you ever saw a branch repeater or WAN optimizer, WAN scaler, did you think this is where it would be someday?
No, sir.
Yeah, now that I go back and look at that, I go, oh, that's a no-brainer. This is what they were doing. They were positioning for this world, but I didn't have enough foresight to understand that.
Me neither.
So Derek, we'll take you up on your challenge to get Carissa and her team on here to talk about CMD, Citrix Managed Desktops, and maybe have a full podcast on that. I'd also like to maybe someday, in addition to having you on for your future blogs, but someday maybe just walk through all the jobs you've had and talk about the different technologies you were part of helping to evolve. Because I think for a lot of us, that story would help evolve us, and maybe we could do that.
Sounds like fun. All right. Well, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Bill. It's been a pleasure being on your podcast.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Bye for now.